Where are you, Ken?
Okay.
I am in my house.
Okay.
Guys, the commissioners, the live stream is on. The chair calls to order the February 24th, 2021 meeting of the Kansas Governmental Ethics Commission. Welcome back, everybody. It's good to see you again. I apologize for missing the prior meeting. In the materials that Sherry and Mark provided, you have today's agenda and the minutes from the January 27th meeting. Everybody has had a chance to review them. Can anybody identify any corrections that need to be made to either the agenda or the minutes as written? Hearing none, do I have a motion to approve?
This is Patty. I move to approve the meeting minutes from the January meeting.
Thank you, Patty. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Todd. Is there any additional discussion about today's agenda and the minutes as written? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 All opposed say nay. The motion passes. Turning to today's agenda, we begin with an executive director's report. Mark?
The only item on the director's report this month is Zoom meeting cost reimbursement. Back when the pandemic started, we tried Teams for a little while and then we switched to Zoom, thinking perhaps naively that it would not last quite this long. I started to just pay for Zoom out of my personal account rather than have the agency pay for it. I didn't worry about it too much. It's been a while since that time at this point. And when we moved the account over to the agency's control effective in March, we were asked to essentially ask for a reimbursement and have the commission take a vote on it. I'd only be asking for reimbursement for 5 months at $15 per month. And that would just be a reimbursement to me directly. But that's, I'm not incredibly bothered by the fact that I made the expense, but we were just asked that the commission should take a vote on that.
I'd move we reimburse the executive director.
Second.
I've got a question. Mark, are you out only 5 months, or was it 5 months?
I'm asking for 5 months of reimbursement. The rest of the months, there was at least one instance in which I used a Zoom account for something other than KGEC
I got you.
agency business.
I just want to make sure you're fully reimbursed and you're not being nice.
A little nice, but I'm worried about it.
You get
Thank
that,
you, Mark.
Sylvia?
Well, we have a motion by John that's been seconded by Ken. Is there any additional discussion? All in favor of approving the reimbursement signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed say nay. The motion passes. Proceeding with the agenda, it appears as if we have some civil penalties to discuss. Mark?
Yes, as perhaps expected, we just had the January report, and now we have civil penalties arising from those. We have for failure to or late amendments for a January 10th, 2020 report. We have Jorge Flores, Sofia Barajas, Harold Johnson, and Rosalind Brown, all who have filed their report but hit the maximum $300. For amended July 27th, 2020 reports, we have Harold and Ann Zajic, Richard Garza, Mandy Peters. For late filing of a January 10th, 2021 report, we have Jan Beamer, Matt Kalkara, John Whitmer, Harold Johnson, Rosalind Brown, John Edmonds, and Marta Edwards. And you can see the amounts there ranging from out of those groups, ranging from 60 to 180. All of those have been filed at this time. On the next page, you have parties and PACs. There are only 2 late filing from the January 10th report. And that's Steve Lopez from the Kansas City, Kansas Fraternal Order of Police for $40, and Charles Poisson, the treasurer from the Norton County Republican Central Committee for $50. There's 1 late lobbyist civil penalty from the February report, and that's George Hanna, who was 1 day late for $100.
Thanks, Mark.
You don't need to vote on them. They're assessed automatically.
Okay. The next item on the agenda is civil penalty waiver requests, and it looks like we have 7. How do you want to proceed with these, Mark?
We do have one from an individual who is here in person. In recognition of their schedule and time, my recommendation would be to start with Judge McKessick. I apologize if I mispronounced that.
Okay. Well, do we need some background on the issue, or do we want to just turn it over to Ms. McKessick?
The amount is for $500. You have I believe you have you do the written request there as well, which is a page. And once you have a chance to review that, we could hear from the judge, and then I have a couple of comments as well.
Do any of the commissioners have any questions of Judge McKessick?
This is Todd Scharnhorst, Judge. It seems to me, based on your letter, and thank you for writing that and providing the detail, that the pandemic and everything surrounding it, including the delays with mail and the inability to timely communicate, is essentially the position you're taking.
That's correct. And let me begin by thanking you all for letting me join today, and especially having this by Zoom. It made it possible for me to be able to attend today through my court schedule. That's correct. With the delays back in October through the mail, the treasurer didn't receive the letter. And when the letter was received, was already in default. When it was received, it was on a Saturday. He was already 4 days in arrear. When he did call Topeka, they told him to get it as soon as possible, then put it on a Monday, and then he got it there as soon as possible. The second address, which would have been the default address, which was my mailing address, is actually the one. A lot of times judges do that for safety reasons. We don't give our home addresses. Back in October, the Wyandotte County Courthouse wasn't open officially. We were only having Zoom hearings at that time. Our clerk staff and our court staff was closed, so I wouldn't have received that letter till a much later date. So by default, that second mailing address that should have come to me was actually going to the Wyandotte County Courthouse, which back in October, we would have been closed during that time.
Thank you.
Do any other commissioners have questions of Judge McKessick? Do any
Just a
commissioners
question.
wish?
Yep, sorry, Nick, I was just going to say, is this a first offense? Has this happened before?
No, I've never been penalized or received any type of reprimand or reformation before from any type of ethics committee, civil or otherwise.
Thank you very much.
Do any commissioners wish to make a motion?
Would have comments, Mr. Chairman, per normal, if you have a moment.
Sure.
While I'm not going to have a specific recommendation, I perhaps would not necessarily recommend waiving in full, a partial waiver, or perhaps there's strong arguments in favor of the judge that this is their first offense. They do have a fairly sizable history of compliance, which I think is very important typically. And she is here in person, despite I'm sure, very busy schedule. However, a couple of notes on the waiver request. The note about receiving the failure to file 4 days after already being in arrears. The civil penalties typically begin when we send the failure to file. And the reason why is because candidates know the deadlines. They know when those deadlines are. They certainly don't have, the failure to file is not what they should rely upon in order to file timely. Additionally, the 7 to 10 day comment, I've spoken to everyone on my staff. I've spoken to the Secretary of State's office. We're not sure who they would have spoken to receive that information, but no one in my office certainly recalls that. And certainly 7 to 10 days is not a time frame that we offer for any particular, it's not a time frame that's relevant to any particular governmental ethics deadline. So it's possible I talked to someone that said that, but it wouldn't have been in our office or the Secretary of State's office. There may have been a miscommunication with the county clerk or something like that, but that communication would not have come from our office.
Thank you, Mark. Very helpful. Are there any additional questions, or is there a motion to be made?
This is Todd. Nick, I appreciate Mark's comments always. And the things that he mentioned that I paid particular attention to was the judge's history of good compliance. The fact that she is making a personal appearance today, which at this stage, as long as I've been on the panel, I don't really recall that happening. So I think she's taking it seriously. I would move to waive the penalty in its entirety.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Todd. Thank you, Ken. The motion as it is a complete waiver of the civil penalty. Is there any additional discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of approving the motion signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed say nay. The motion passes. The civil penalty is waived. The next item on the agenda is a James Ward. Mark, is there any reason to group these going forward? Or do we need to
Thank you, Judge, for being here. That's completed the item, so you're good to leave if you would like.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I appreciate your time. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you, Judge.
Thank you, Judge.
Thank you.
Thank
Have a
you.
good day.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, we can group James Ward and Christy Schroeder. Those are both administrative waivers. They were assessed, I think, $300 and $600. These were, however, items that were received by the Secretary of State. They just hadn't been passed on to our office in the time. So it appeared to our office that they were late. This happens 2 or 3 times a year. We typically waive these when they occur. So my recommendation, this is actually a request from me rather than from the candidates or the individuals.
Understood. Do I hear a motion to waive?
Move, we waive.
Thank you, John. Do I have a second?
I second that.
Thank you, Kyle. Is there any additional discussion regarding Mr. Ward and Ms. Schroeder? Hearing none, all in favor of approving the motion signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed say nay. The motion passes. The next item on the agenda is Steve Lopez.
I think I've got Christine Williams, actually, a candidate for county commission. She has a writing that she submitted. She was assessed $1,000 last month. This is one of we have a few individuals every year that lose the primary and then don't believe they have to file an October report, even though it's on every communication that we send them. So it's something they should know. This individual is another person who lost the primary. They were assessed the full $1,000. They did ultimately file a report that has zeros on it, so they did not take in or expend any money. They hadn't received a previous penalty, and they did terminate properly. So we don't. $1,000 may be more than is necessary to deter this individual from late filing in future, which is the goal of these penalties. But the items that are stated in the waiver request are not typically items that we provide waivers for. So it's we've got a couple of these today that are very similar in this way.
Do the commissioners have any questions of Mark, or does anybody wish to make a motion with respect to Christine Williams?
Do you have a recommendation, Mark? Maybe you said it and I missed it, but.
I don't. It's really an odd circumstance because the $1,000, again, may be more than is necessary to deter that behavior, but the waiver request that they sent in does not actually provide a basis that we typically use to provide those waivers. So it puts us in a little bit of a difficult position. they did terminate and they did file zeros. But losing the primary and then just not filing the October report is not usually enough on its own to justify not filing that report timely.
What do you
So-
think would be an appropriate fine, Mark?
I don't have that number. This is
Any prior?
a local candidate that didn't raise any money.
$100.
I'm fine with whatever the commission decides.
Did you already answer? Were there any priors? I mean,
No.
first time candidacy and everything, right?
First time penalty. I don't know if it's a first time candidacy, but based on the communication, I wouldn't be surprised if it is a first time candidate as well.
John, do you wish to make a motion?
I'll make a motion that we impose a fine of, that the fine be abated to $100 if paid within 30 days.
Okay,
I'll second that.
thank you, Amy. Motion is to reduce to 100 if paid within 30 days. Is there any additional discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of approving the motion signify by saying aye.
All right.
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Motion passes. Thank you, John. Thank you, Amy. Next item is involving now Steve Lopez.
So Mr. Lopez was assessed $270, and then again today was just assessed $40 for late filing of a couple of reports. This individual, you have a handwritten writing there that they've been doing this for a while. They indicate actually in the letter that they don't typically have problems here. I have a couple of comments. That first, this individual often is late. We often send failure to files to them, but they are not typically so late that they receive a penalty. So this is their first penalty, but we do often have to engage them after the deadline to obtain compliance. Additionally, they said that would they change their addresses, which is part of why they did not get some communications as quickly as they wanted. Then we sent it to the address that's listed on their appointment of treasurer, which they did not update. So that's what we're required to, which is what we're required to do. So I would not recommend a full waiver at a minimum in this instance, but any other determination I think is fine. I think it's again, the waiver request doesn't actually provide a basis for me to recommend a waiver.
He's already paid the fine, so if we waive it, we'd be returning some of that to him.
We have not deposited the check.
Okay.
And what was the amount, Mark?
270 and 40 for a total of 310.
Yeah, did he send a check for 310?
If memory serves, the check was for 270 because the $40 had not yet been assessed.
Okay.
Does anybody have any questions, or does anybody wish to make a motion?
I guess what I would,
Is,
Go ahead.
oh, go ahead. Go ahead, Jen.
Okay.
well, I say, is the $40, is that up on the agenda today?
Yes.
Okay, I guess my thought is to take his check for 270 and waive the $40.
I second that.
Okay, thank you, Ken. Thank you, Amy. The motion is to accept the fine of 270 and waive the $40. Is there any additional discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of approving the motion signify by saying aye.
All right.
Aye.
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 Say
Aye.
nay. Thank you. The motion passes. The next individual is Brian Pruitt.
So this individual was assessed $100 last month. This is an individual who asserts a couple of issues with the mail. We sent them information. We have green cards, so we have certified mail confirming that they've received these items 3 weeks before they actually eventually submitted the amended report. So there's some indications in this letter that they had to take some time once they received that communication from us, but it certainly should not have taken that long of amount of time, certainly without communicating with us about that. The civil penalty, so to give a time frame here, the failure to file the amended report was sent on October 29th. The treasurer received it, and we have confirmation they received it on November 2nd. The candidate received it on November 11th. The civil penalty didn't even begin until November 14th. The amended report wasn't filed until November 23rd, a full 3 weeks after the treasurer received it. He had some issue when we discussed the item on the phone that he believes that the electronic filing system should not allow you to proceed if you omit addresses. It doesn't allow you to go forward. However, he had typed not available in on all of the addresses, which is why the system accepted the submission of the report. That was the subject of the errors and omissions request or notice that we had sent him in the first place. So we also sent it to the campaign address on record. That was on the appointment of treasurer form. I would not recommend this waiver. Maybe I'm taking the position of I'm channeling Jane a little bit this meeting since she's not here, I guess.
Somebody needs to.
And this is just a $100 fine.
Correct.
Why in the letter does he say $1,000?
I see 100 on the letter. It's Mr. Pruitt is the one we're talking about.
Okay.
It's an amended report as well, so the maximum amount that he could have been charged was 300.
Understood. So does anybody wish to make a motion? Hearing none, we can move on.
The last item is for Danae Stahl, a candidate for county commission. This is very, very similar to the Christine Williams item that we discussed earlier. You have the writing there. This is another individual who who lost the primary and did not realize they needed to file the general report. They filed zeros and terminated, so they did not accept or spend money during that time period. So you have that writing there. My recommendation is that however we proceeded with Christine Williams, which was to reduce to 100 if paid within 30 days, for consistency's sake, this scenario is very similar, at least by my reading.
We reduced Christie's to 100 if paid within 30 days.
That is correct.
Yeah. Is that your recommendation then, Mark?
Yes.
Yes. Does anybody wish to make a motion?
I would make that motion that we reduce it to 100 if paid within 30 days.
Thank you, Kyle. Do I have a second?
I'll second that, Ken.
Okay, thank you, Ken. Is there any additional discussion? The motion is to reduce to 100 if paid within 30 days. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed say nay. Motion passes. The next item on the agenda scheduled for 1:30, 1 minute from now, is a public hearing involving complaint number 694, Senator Cindy Holscher.
You want me to go forward with the hearing, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, please do,
She
Joe.
has just joined, so we may want to make sure that her audio and videos are working. But she just joined the meeting just now.
Okay. Is her audio and video working? Cindy, are
Senator
you with
Holscher,
us?
can you hear us?
Are you with us, Cindy?
I am.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. My name is John Solbach, and I've been appointed as a hearing officer by the chairman in case number 694, Mark Skoglund, complainant versus Cindy Holscher.
Holscher, yeah.
Okay, respondent. And this is a complaint, and I hereby call this hearing to order. Just to give you a summary of how we'll proceed, are you here pro se or do you have counsel?
I'm here on my own.
Okay, our counsel will list the appearances later on. But the first thing we'll do is we'll hear from the complainant, and the complainant will have the opportunity to open You can open after the complainant opens, or you can hold your opening until after the complainant finishes with his case. You'll have the opportunity to cross-examine any witnesses that he brings forward. And the commissioners also will have the opportunity to ask questions of the witnesses. I'm the hearing officer, but this hearing is before the commission. And so it's the commission that will decide the outcome of the hearing. I may make rulings from time to time. Those rulings will stand unless challenged by a member of the commission. It's a majority of the commission, if the rulings are challenged, that will determine whether those rulings stand or not. But my job is to conduct the hearing, not to decide the case. After the petitioner presents his case, then you'll have the opportunity to present your case. You can make your opening then if you've reserved it. You can call witnesses, or you can make your presentation to the commission. The commissioners have the opportunity to ask questions of you, as will the complainant or complainant's attorney. The complainant will have the opportunity to close before we vote. We used to take a vote, or we used to deliberate in executive session. That's no longer the case. We'll deliberate in open session. And then a majority of the commission will determine what the outcome of the case will be. This is a complaint, which means that the commission's determination will be sent on to the proper prosecuting authorities in the county where you reside, and to the Attorney General. The commission can recommend that no further action be taken, or we can be silent with respect to that.
I do have a question. May I ask a question? I'm sorry.
Yes.
I just want to make sure, Sherry, do I have the correct materials for this? Because in my email, I have one document attached with executive session materials, and I do not see this topic. Can you let me know, please, which document I need to be looking at?
You need to be looking at the complaint. It should be
It's in the general packet.
3-page document that it's titled complaint. It's signed by Mark Skogland and notarized before Sherry Fergal.
Thank you. I found it. Thank you.
Okay. Counsel for the complainant, would you state the appearances, please, for everyone?
Yes, Mr. Hearing Officer. The complainant, Mark Skogland, Director of the Governmental Ethics Commission, appears personally and by counsel Brett Berry. And as the hearing officers already noted, Senator Holcher appears pro se.
Okay. In person. Okay.
Yes.
Would you like to go forward with your case, or do you want to proceed with or do you want to proceed on a proffer without objection from the commission and the complainant?
If we proceed as a proffer, I would proffer the statement that Senator Holcher has submitted.
Okay.
It basically was a self-reporting situation, but for the self-reporting, we may not have even been aware that there had been a violation. I do not believe Senator Holcher is contesting the specific facts, since it's the self-report that she provided. And assuming that she does not object, if the court reviews her submission, that would be the proffer of the state for adjudication purposes. But again, I'm not sure that there's any contest in regard to the underlying violation itself.
Okay. Could you summarize the violation and what the self-report says for the commission?
Well, in summary, without referring to specific dates, I think on 2 occasions there was automated telephone calls that Ms. Holscher had caused to be made to voters, constituents, and it did not provide the attribution, paid for by attribution at the beginning of the recordings. It was provided at the end of the recordings, and basically the statute requires those to be made at the beginning of the recording, which would give whoever is contacted by the automated phone call an opportunity to make a decision as to whether or not they want to listen to the message. So that was the instance of non-compliance, is that they just were not at the beginning of the automated message during the
What
phone
is the statutory penalty for such a violation or violation?
These are subject to civil fine under the Campaign Finance Act as corrupt political advertising, and they fall within the schedule provided in KSA 254181A, which would be up to $5,000 for a first offense, up to $10,000 for a second offense, or up to $15,000 for a third offense. And it is my understanding that this was a second occurrence. So the range available to the commission, assuming that there is an adjudication, would be up to $10,000.
Okay. Is there one violation alleged or two?
In this complaint, there is just one violation alleged based upon two separate phone calls,
Okay.
or two separate groups of phone calls.
Yeah, you mentioned that this was subject to a civil penalty. Should this be a civil fine hearing instead of a complaint, or is the complaint the proper thing that you want to proceed on?
Well, it was filed as a complaint because the corrupt political advertising statute itself, 2541/56 provides for a criminal violation as a Class C misdemeanor, and that's why it was filed as a complaint rather than a civil fine notice.
Okay. Other questions from the commission?
Hey, Brett, this is Amy. You referred to a first offense. What was that?
I'm going to defer to Mark. What was the first offense? I know you'd looked that up.
So this individual, so Senator Holscher in 2018 had sent postcards, some of which had been distributed without the proper paid for attribution. That also was a self-report. At the time, it went before the commission, and as we normally do for first offenses of paid for violations, we provided a waiver at the time. This would be a second offense. This was self-reported in October of 2020 involving the robocalls that Brett has previously articulated.
Okay, thank you. The only other thing I would add too is I just wanted to be transparent with the rest of the Ethics Commission that Cindy Holscher is my senator that represents the district that I live in. And I have met her before. That will not swayed my decision today, but I just wanted to let the rest of the commission know that and be open about that.
We generally leave recusal up to the individual commissioner, and if you feel you can be fair, there's no reason for you to recuse yourself. You remain a participating member of the commission. Are there further questions from the commission? Okay. Does that include your opening, Brett?
Yes, I don't have anything further so long as the proffer is accepted.
Okay. Senator, would you care to make an opening statement?
Oh, yeah, thank you. And can you hear me?
We can.
Okay, that's the common phrase every day now. Yeah, no, what Mr. Scoglin stated is correct. This was a self-reporting. You know, as you go through the process of campaign and you have different people working for you, you know, hopefully you communicate to them to make sure to include the proper attribution, that type of thing. Obviously, there was a slip up in 2018 with somebody who sent out some postcards and it wasn't there. We self-reported that. And, in this case, obviously I am ultimately responsible. While I communicate to the individual and make sure the attribute is there, it just totally slipped my mind to communicate that it has to be at the beginning versus the end. So I know he felt he was doing the right thing, but like I said, ultimately it's my responsibility. As soon as we were made aware, we made a correction to the message, got the attribute up front on the remaining calls. So that's pretty much it.
Okay. Are there any questions from the commission? Brett, do you have a recommendation, or does the does your client have a recommendation for disposition of this matter?
I'll defer to Mr. Skoglund.
Typically, when we consider how to resolve these sort of items, there are three parts to the determination. We find a violation, assess a fine, and determine whether there's further action that should be referred to prosecutors. In this item, my recommendation would be that we do find a violation, and that we do not recommend any further action by any prosecutor. I don't believe a prosecutor would likely follow up with it anyway, but I don't believe they should in this instance. It's my recommendation. As far as a fine, we don't run into a lot of paid for violations that occur a second time, but almost because they are common enough, obviously people in politics for long enough might run into it a second time after a while. I don't have a specific recommendation as to a fine, but I will note that Brett is correct that I think it is unlikely that we would have heard about either of these paid for items were it not self-reported. And I think that that's an consideration.
Senator, do you have a recommendation with respect to disposition of the matter?
I have counseled the employee. Again, ultimately, I'm the responsible party. I think, as Mark said, over the course of time, once you've been in this for a while, running campaigns, and when you delegate things, once in a while something slips through. But we work very diligently to adhere to all ethical standards. I am here to do what is normal and proper in these situations. So, we hate that anything happened, but obviously when there's a slip up, we're going to own it, as we do, in this particular case.
The fine can be paid, assuming one is imposed by your campaign fund. Do you have a specific recommendation with respect to a fine that you would like to make to the commission?
Based upon the number of calls that went out and the cost that we put into them, I think that we did calculate that we felt somewhere between 50 and 250. I don't know if that makes sense to the commission. Like I said, we just did a basic calculation based upon the number of calls that had gone out. But again, like I said, that was a calculation we performed.
I have a question. Out of curiosity, what was the math that when you say you performed a calculation that led you to 50 to 250? What was that calculation? Do you know?
Yeah, we looked at basically the cost per call and the number of calls that had gone out, and based upon like the number of times that a message was actually left versus, sometimes you don't even leave a recording. The dialer dials, but it doesn't go anywhere. So we looked at the number of times that a message was able to be left, or if a person picked up, and the calls are pretty cheap overall. So like I said, we looked at what the number of calls that had been placed in that time period.
Okay, thank you.
Are there further questions from the commission? Brett, do you desire to make a closing statement?
The only thing I would pass on by way of argument would be that the elements of the offense have been admitted. There's no real disagreement in regard to those, and we would submit the matter for decision to the commission, knowing that they're fully advised in the circumstances, but no specific references to a fine amount.
Senator, would you like to close?
Oh, yeah. No, thank you for your time. And like I said, I am here for your guidance and your consideration and the respect that, an error was made. We quickly tried to take care of it where we could and make adjustments to the messaging. And like I said, it's just one of those, nothing was met. The intent certainly was not unethical or, trying to be sneaky or anything like that. Just obviously a lot of moving parts in a campaign and lots of communication happening. And sometimes a piece falls through and we want to make you aware of it.
Okay. We might take this in two steps. First step would be to determine whether a violation has occurred. Is there a motion with respect to that from the commission?
I would move that based upon the proffer of our counsel and the stipulation of the senator, that there is a factual basis established for the violation and that we make a finding of a violation at this time.
Is there discussion is there a second to that motion?
I would second that.
Is there discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed,
Aye.
nay. Motion carries. Is there a motion with respect to a civil penalty?
Based upon the record, I would move that we enter a fine of $200 for the violation that was self-reported. It's very clear that the senator self-reported, been very transparent. The message is really in support of her, not against any particular other party. And that if paid within 30 days, that'd be the end of it. If we are required to forward to the appropriate prosecuting office, we forward with recommendation that no action be taken.
Is there a second to that motion?
I would second that.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Motion carries. That concludes the hearing in this matter. The hearing on this matter is now closed. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I would make a recommendation. That is, one violation's been print, another's been telephone. I'd brush up on the social media rules.
Yeah, absolutely. And, it's one of those things too, as a candidate, 2016, I did everything myself.
Yeah.
2018, handed a few parts off. 2020, a few parts off. And that's where it happens sometimes.
We appreciate the self-report. And as Bear Bryant said, when a mistake is made, there are only three things you can do. You can own it, then you fix it, and then you just don't do it again.
Yep.
Thanks, Kyle.
Yep.
Well, thank you, Senator Holscher, for joining us today. We appreciate it. We wish you best of luck going forward.
All right. Thank you so much. Have a great afternoon, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Solbach. Turning back to the agenda, all that remains is entering into executive session before we adjourn. So, Mark, how much time do we need for executive session today?
Nothing's very complicated, maybe 5 minutes if we do the motion quick enough.
Okay.
I'll do my best. That would be 1:55.
Right.
I move that the commission recess this open meeting until 1:55 p.m. for an executive session to discuss matters related to complaints, confidential pursuant to KSA 46-256, and for good cause provided by KAR 19-6-2, with staff present to participate in the discussion. Justification for recess to executive meeting is to consult with the commission's attorney, which is deemed privileged in the attorney-client relationship, as provided for in KSA 75-4319, subparagraphs B and 2.
Thank you, Kyle. Do we have a second on that motion?
Second.
Thank you. Any additional discussion before we enter executive session? Hearing none, all in
Mark,
favor
I
of
don't
the
believe I-
motion? Go ahead, Jerry.
Go ahead. We'll vote and then I'll.
Okay. Yeah. All in favor of approving the motion signify by saying aye.
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 Aye.